If you were going to spend between 60 and £70,000 on a large family SUV, it's probably fair to say you'd be looking at one with either an Audi, a BMW, Mercedes badge, perhaps Land Rover, maybe even a Jaguar, especially if you wanted to go all electric. Well, now there's another name to add to that list: Kia. And no, I'm not joking, because this is the new Kia EV9. And you're going to want to take this one very seriously indeed. Welcome to this week's edition of Sneak Peeks. Welcome to the new Kia EV9. And as always, welcome to AutoEV. Now, before we go on to this week's edition of Sneak Peeks, and of course the new Kia EV9, it is of course that time where I'm going to ask you to make sure that you are subscribed to the AutoEV channel. Then once you've done that, make sure you've pressed the little bell button that's down below, because then that way you'll be notified of when our next video goes live. Once you've watched the video, if you do enjoy it, make sure you give it a thumbs up. And of course, don't forget to leave us your comments down below. Let us know your thoughts on the cars that we review, such as the new Kia EV9, and of course on the AutoEV channel as a whole. Now, it might seem a bit strange, especially to our younger viewers who maybe don't realise where Kia came from in the past, when we start talking about Kia as being a little bit of an upstart when it comes to challenging the traditional premium badges such as Audi, BMW, Mercedes-Benz, especially in Europe. But cast your mind back, just 30 years ago, all Kia had to offer was just one car, and that was in itself was a rehashed version of a discontinued Mazda, the 121 that Kia called the Pride. And yet since then, they have built a huge reputation as being the purveyor of really very good products. I mean, for instance, we've had things like the Soul, the Niro, the Seed, the Stinger, and of course, when it comes to electrified cars, the EV6, a real channel favourite of ours. Last year in Europe, in 2022, Kia sold over 500,000 units, which was an 8% increase over the previous year. And 36% of those cars were electrified in some way, shape or form. And by 2030, they are hoping to increase that again by another 30%. So they are taking this very, very seriously. But as I say, whilst down at the lower end, it's very easy to see where Kia may fit in the marketplace. This is a premium SUV. And as we know, outside the school gates, badge carries quite a weight with it. So are you willing to give up your BMW, Audi or Mercedes-Benz for a Kia? Well, let's take a bit of a deeper dive into this one and find out. Now let's start with the styling, because this is a very bold looking car and one that is unapologetically a proper big boxy SUV. Doesn't mean to say that it's not aerodynamically efficient, because it has a very low drag coefficient, but we'll go on to that in a little second. But look at the front of it. You've got your digital tiger nose, which is Kia's kind of signature style with this panel here. Now, of course, you don't need a grille in the car. Obviously, there's cooling, active cooling down at the bottom here with flaps that open and close as and when they're needed. But of course, you can see this digital tiger nose here. Now, Kia, a little bit like their sister brand Hyundai, what they want to do is they want each car to have its own unique identity, and it's very far removed from something like swoopy and curvaceous as the Kia EV6. It's very blocky and very edgy and very bold, and as I say, unapologetically a large SUV. I mean, it's 5 metres long, it's over 5 metres long in length, and it's nearly 2 metres wide as well. So this is a big old bus of a car. You've got these wonderful DRLs at the side here, these nice sharp DRLs with the upright LED headlamps in the car. Now this particular car is a GT line car. There is another baseline car here which we'll put some B-roll up of as well. And it's in this kind of matte kind of frozen blue colour, which is quite nice because it does show the kind of sharp creases and lines of the car. There's a huge focus on autonomy as well. In other words, the car, as we move towards autonomy, and whether we'd like it or not, this is going to be able to adhere to that with over-the-air updates and software upgrades. So you've got 2 LiDAR sensors either side of this section of the grille here, or the grille that's not a grille here, for the LiDAR sensors in that, and there's a huge amount of sensors around the car as well. You've got your very prominent big Kia logo up at the front as well, again blazoned across the bonnet. And as I say, it's got its own real kind of style about it. And I really like the kind of blocky, kind of edgy look to the car. As I say, it's not curvaceous and swoopy like the EV6. You can tell it's a Kia because, as I say, there are lines on it that are very, very similar to things like the Niro, and as I say, obviously with the digital tiger nose at the front, but it treads its own path, and I really like that. Now, in some markets, you're going to have little sort of like DRLs behind this panel that are going to kind of shine through in a particular pattern that you can decide. But at the moment, in terms of European legislation, that's not going to be available on the European cars. But you will have seen certainly some press photographs with them here. But as I say, at the moment, that's not fit for legislation for the European market, which is a little bit of a shame. But irrespective of that, the front end signature of this car, you're going to know that it's an EV9 that's coming up behind you, especially at night. Now, as I say, this is a big car. It's over 5 metres in length. It was first shown back in 2021 as a concept car, and it's pretty much stayed true to form. I mean, they've obviously changed some things for production. You know, obviously there's more productionised version of it and gone are the rear hinge suicide doors, but the overall look is there, and that's exactly what Kia are going for. And I say it's very blocky and it's very edgy. I really like some of these very kind of bold and unapologetic kind of creases in the car. Now, wheel sizes, you're going to go from 19-inch wheels up to these 21-inch wheels. And again, all about aerodynamics for efficiency. They are very kind of aero-styled alloy wheels. All of the wheels are, all the design of the alloy wheels, they're all very kind of focused on providing good airflow around the car. And as I say, for such a big, blocky car, it has an excellent drag coefficient. You're going to have the option of these digital side mirrors as well. So depending obviously on the spec you want, you're going to be able to option up with these digital side mirrors. Regular viewers know I've got a kind of love-hate kind of relationship with these. I like them on the Honda E, I don't like them on the Audi e-tron that we tested last week. Kia, Hyundai, Genesis, they're all right. This is the first time that Kia have actually offered the digital side mirrors on a car, on a production car. And they're all right, the screens are nice and they're big inside, but you do still have these kind of big stalks out here with the camera on them. So I'm not sure, jury's still out for me on that one. What else have we got? Okay, so you've got the kind of bodywork cladding down at the bottom, as I say, it's proper big, chunky SUV. It's not as a kind of apologetic looking as something like a Mercedes EQE SUV that just says, oh, we're not really quite sure that people want a big SUV. Kia go, no, they do, and this is what we want to give them, is this big kind of boxy thing. And I think it looks fantastic. I really like it. I mean, look at some of these lines that are coming out of it here that you see there. And then I see these kind of big, kind of bold creases around the wheel arches as well. This lovely window line that comes all the way along, really straight line up here, and then a real sharp big kink right up to the back in this rear spoiler. And this is a big piece of glass here that you've got on this kind of third side window. There's a huge piece of glass here because obviously you can have the car with a choice of either 6 or 7 seats, which I'll show you obviously when it comes down to the interior. But as I say, it's big, it's bold, it's treading its own path, and I really like that. Pop-out door handles, as you'd expect, obviously, in terms of obviously when the car locks or it's driving, they go flush, and it's again to help with the aero. And again, depending on the trim level that you get will depend on the style of roof bars that you get as well. This is a GT line car, so the roof bars are a little bit different than they are you get on the baseline car, which I'll show you as well. But yeah, as I say, big, blocky, bold. Yeah, I like it. Now at the back, a little bit like the front, you've got these kind of star map LED lights. There's a hint of kind of Volvo XC90, EX90 going on there. Also as well, I'm seeing a bit of a Stormtrooper's helmet going on there. Can you see it? Maybe me? Just me? Okay. All right, maybe just me. Big roof spoiler. Again, airflow, really important to the car. So it's taking airflow right across, well out past the back window. Talking of which, you've got an integrated rear wiper that's tucked up right up in there. So it does have a rear wiper. It's not there, it's up in there. Gives a good sweep of the screen. And you've also got a rear camera tucked in there. Your tailgate comes right down to bumper level as well. And again, talking of rear bumper, although it's painted, it's nice and it's kind of bold. It's different kind of the body colour in terms of that. And you've got sort of like a rear kind of skid plate as well. Tailgate comes down to, as I say, the bumper level. So it's got good access into the rear load space. And even with the 6 or 7 seat option with the rear seats in place, as you'll see in a second, there is enough space in terms of luggage capacity for all your occupants. All there is on the back in terms of badging, you've got your big Kia logo, much like the front. Of course, your little EV9 badge there, and then your trim level down in there. Everything else, neat, unfussy, but big, bold and brash. What do we think? Well, I love it, I have to say. We were showing the car last night for the first time in the flesh, and there was an element of me that thought it's quite typical, kind of almost going back to the 80s, the 70s and 80s, kind of big off-roader looks, you know, Toyota Land Cruiser, Isuzu Trooper, Mitsubishi Shogun. Again, that kind of big, bold, it's not apologising for what it is. It's a big family-orientated SUV, and it's not hiding that from anybody. The right move? Would you have preferred to see Kia do something a little bit more subtle, a little bit smaller, maybe even an MPV rather than a big SUV? What do you think? As always, let us know in the comments down below. Now, as I say, it's a big old bus, this. So, carrying capacity is pretty generous, even with these third row seats in place. Now, depending obviously whether you go for the 6 or 7 seat option, you're going to get between 312 and 333 litres of carrying capacity with all the seats in place. If you knock these rearmost seats down, which you do by just pulling these tabs and they all fold down, that's now over 800 litres of boot space. And then of course you can actually then flip the rear seats down completely, so you've got a completely flat floor all the way through. Now obviously bear in mind, if you do go for the 6 seat option, which this one is, then obviously there's going to be a drop there. If you go for the 7 seat option, then that middle is a bench as well. But that is a huge amount of space. What else do you have? Well, you've got a little bit of underfloor storage here. You've got things such as you can have the tonneau cover, which folds neatly, packages away neatly in there. You know, your tire inflation system that's in there, and a little bit of a toolkit and things like that, and your luggage blind, all that goes in there. Now the car's quite tall. It's just under 2 metres, it's 1.8, just over 1.8 metres tall. So again, it's a big old car. And as you can see, remember I had the big problem with the BMW iX, and I'm not a particularly big man, I'm not a tall man, but this tailgate's way above my head, so it makes loading and unloading the car very, very easy. And that is going to be key when it comes to the practicality side of the EV9. You've got connectivity in the back as well. You're going to have here, it's obviously the European specification car, but there'll be a 3-pin plug back here, but there's going to be USB connectivity back there as well, and you've also got a 12-volt charger in there. So if you're putting things in the back, like I don't know, like a cool box, if you're going away on a family trip or whatever, then obviously there's connectivity for it in there. But as I say, very big, very practical. It's going to meet most families' needs, I would suggest. Now, if you do go for the 6 seat option, these middle row seats have got a little bit of a party piece, because what you can actually do is you can swivel them round. So just by pulling this lever here, you can swivel them to there, so you can get ease of entry into the car. So if you've got a slightly elderly person that's finding it difficult to sort of get in and out of the car, they can hoik themselves up into that and then spin the seat round. However, what you can also do is this. If your kids just want to sort of sit and play games, almost MPV-like, what you can also do is swivel the seat this way, so they face into the back row as well. Now, it's not going to be ideal in terms of if you've got kind of 4 adults that are going to sit there and have a business meeting or something like that. We all tried it last night. It's not ideal, but certainly for kids, it might just kind of sort of placate them a little bit and make sure they kind of face each other. But as I say, that's an option. As I say, the 6 seat version, that you can only do that obviously on. If you go for the 7 seat option, then it's a standard 60-40 rear bench that you're going to have, rather than these captain's chairs. Now, if you are going to use the rearmost seats for carrying passengers, what's it like? Well, if I can get myself in here with my dodgy foot, what I can tell you is that it's actually okay. There's a reasonable amount of room back here. As I say, you're not going to get 4 adults kind of facing each other if you swivel these seats round, but actually this third row of seats, there's plenty of room back here. It's certainly as good as you'd say getting, say, a Land Rover Discovery or a Volvo XC90. Of course, that boxy styling means you've got this roof, even with the panoramic glass sunroof in this car, that goes all the way out to the back, so the headroom isn't encroached into at all. And there's plenty sort of like things to do back here. So you've got cup holders back here and USB-C ports as well. And of course, being based on the eGMP platform, you've got a completely flat floor as well. So that's another bonus with the car. And in this second row, well, as you can expect, the space is absolutely ample back here. It's a huge amount of space that's available to you. No problem again with headroom. I mean, again, you'd have to be well over 6 foot before that starts troubling you in terms of that. And as I say, the flat floor gives you good space. With the 6-seat option, it does mean you can kind of walk through into the rearmost accommodation, obviously from the second row, which is good. And there is a little bit of storage in the back here. You can slide back this tray. There's a little bit of a cubby box in there, which obviously you can uncover, or you can use this as a kind of tray for putting, you know, sort of drinks on or whatever. So again, it's well thought out. It's been thought about for families and how they're going to use the car. You've got 2 big kind of cup holders at the back there as well, in the back of that centre console. And again, depending on specification, you're going to have the ability as well where you can actually move the front passenger seat as well. So again, depending obviously on what your needs are, you're going to be able to adjust that from the rear if you want a bit more leg space, if you're obviously behind the front passenger. So that's pretty good. Connectivity, well, as you'd expect, you've got USB-C ports in the backs of the front seats. You've got the kind of airline style rigid mat pockets here. The car is also going to come with heated and ventilated seats depending on specification for the second row as well. So that's another good thing as well. And as I say, it's just a big feeling of space back here. Separate climate controls for rear passenger, they're going to be available as well. And obviously you've got sort of like air vents that are up in the ceiling here. So as I say, you don't feel like a second class citizen, whether it's the second or even the third row that you're in the EV9. Now this is a baseline car, and you can see this has the more kind of traditional, and dare I suggest probably a little bit more practical, 7-seat layout with a normal 60-40 rear bench. But as I say, it doesn't lose out on any practicality at all, or space for that matter. You still have a huge amount of space back here for your second row of passengers. And of course, the seat will still slide backwards and forwards, being, as I say, on that flat floor. And of course, you've got the ability to move the seat backwards or forwards, obviously depending if you've got rear passengers or you want bigger boot space as well. So that's very, very good. Again, storage is excellent. You know, centre armrest, it will fold down. You've got a couple of cup holders in here on the 7-seat model. And I say, but the baseline kind of misses out a little bit on that pull-out tray that we saw on the other car. But you still got a big cubby hole there and a couple of cup holders there, and the ability to move the passenger seat forward as well, for say, for a person sat in there. So although, as I say, baseline trim, not exactly basic, is it? So how does it fare up front? Well, really, really well. Again, Kia, they're knocking it out of the park, just like Hyundai, just like Genesis when it comes to their interiors, and this is no different. We've got basically 3 screens. You've got 2 12.3-inch screens, one in front of the driver and one is your infotainment screen, but they're joined by this third 5-inch display in the centre, which is where all your heating and ventilation, or the more detailed heating and ventilation controls are. So heated screens, air conditioning for the rear, that type of thing, whether it's driver only or whatever, are syncing it all up. But Kia's very much at pains to point out that they are still a big fan of buttons, physical buttons for the driver, and therefore they've provided you with the buttons that you're just going to need at a glance, or, you know, a quick sort of like, you know, a quick reach across, and they're going to be there, such as the temperature control is there, fan speed control is there, hazard warnings there, mode for your screen, and again temperature for that side. You've also got these hidden buttons here, so again, home button for the infotainment screen, which has a haptic feedback on it. If you want to go to map, it's the same. So when you switch the car off, they go out and they're hidden from display, which is a really nice touch. Obviously search, media, favourite, and obviously then setup. You've also got a volume control here for the audio system, which is in the centre, and the air vents are all nicely integrated into the dashboard too. Now on this side, on front of the driver, I have to say they've changed a lot in terms of what you're looking at, and my big bugbear with the cars is usually the fact that the speedo's way across on the left and it's cut off by the steering wheel. Now obviously I'm going to have to wait till I drive a right-hand drive car to see if they've actually changed that, but there is a little bit of a design change to this, so I'm quite pleased to see that. The steering wheel, again, physical controls on the actual wheel itself. You've got brake regeneration paddles behind the steering wheel there, and then you've got mode buttons, things for volume, your voice activation, your cruise control, and your distance guided cruise control on that side. On the steering wheel here, you've got drive mode, you've got a terrain mode as well. So again, if you're going off-road in the car, you can press that and it'll come up with the terrain mode. And your actual transmission lever, like the Hyundai on the kind of stock at the side of the steering wheel is moved there. So it's moved from here, rather than the rotating dial that we used to see on some of the Kia electric cars, to now being a stock there, which also has your stop-start button on it as well. So that's quite nice. Obviously there's connectivity, you've got USB connections down in there and a 12-volt socket. And then you've got this lovely big centre console here, which opens up to give water bottle or coffee flask storage here. You've got wireless charging. If you flip open that, there's a big Select Centre cubby box as well, and again there's more Select buttons on the centre here, things like auto hold, your parking assist, and your parking sensors there. Now, as I said to you before when we're going around outside, this particular car is the digital door mirrors, and I'm still not 100% convinced by them, if I'm honest. Again, I've got to drive the car to give you a proper verdict on it. But it's the fact that every time you look, you're still looking at the camera on the stock at the door. I just wish they'd mounted it further down the door so your eye doesn't catch that, and immediately you're drawn to the screen. But there you go, that's what you've got. It is an option, so if you don't like it, you don't have to have it. So there we are. One camera that you do also get is the rear view camera. If you remember, I showed you there was a rear camera underneath the rear spoiler. You can flip the mirror to be either a mirror or the view from that camera, which is going to be really important, especially if you've got sort of like 7 people in the car, or you're using the boot and you've got it stacked right up to the roof. You're going to be able to see by using it as a camera out the back. So that's quite a neat trick as well, that you've got that. As I say, obviously this car's got the big panoramic glass roof, so of course you've got a sunroof in front of the top of the driver and front passenger, now another sunroof behind for the rear passengers. Now there's a massive message of sustainability, as there is with most manufacturers these days. So, you know, a lot of PU materials used in the seats, no leather in the car, so although it looks like leather, it isn't. There's recycled fishing nets. Kia have teamed up with some of the world's kind of ecological companies to really reinforce the sustainability message. You've got recycled fishing nets for the carpets, PU biodegradable materials, biodegradable paint that's used on the dashboard rather than the usual kind of rubberized paint that some manufacturers use. So there's massive message about that. And the seats themselves, well, they're beautifully comfortable, and the head restraints have got like a kind of memory foam on them, which is really nice, this kind of meshed memory foam, which I really do like. So they hold you well, so if you're going for a long trip in the car, and I'll talk about range and usability section, you know, it's easy to do. It's going to be a very, very comfortable car. I'm absolutely convinced about it. Really high commanding driving position. And I say, because of that kind of boxy styling you've got, you can really see the extremities of the car. But yeah, I think this is an absolute winner of an interior for the car, and it's exactly what you want to see from Kia. As I say, there's a real lift, good quality, everything feels nice to the touch. There's a real kind of quality about the controls. You feel it's all kind of built to last. As I say, before I came out here, I've been driving the Audi Q8 e-tron, and as I say, Audi's always been the kind of standard bearer when it comes to the quality of materials used in cars. But really, this is not far away from it at all. This is a really, really well built and pleasingly styled and functional car on its interior. And I think, as I say, as a family car, this is going to work really, really well. So, big car, big battery, absolutely. It's a whopping 99.8 kilowatt hour battery that's in the car. And that's going to see a WLTP range of up to 336 miles, depending on which model you go for. Now, there's going to be a single motor version available and a dual motor version available, but they all get 800 volt architecture and 350 kilowatt charging speeds, which means you're going to be able to top this thing up from 10 to 80% in round about 18 minutes if you can find a 350 kilowatt charger. And again, as well as the sustainability message, there's also a usable sort of a conscious use of power kind of message from Kia. Now bear with me on that. And it's also things like vehicle to load, which obviously comes with the car, but also vehicle to grid as well. So the car, they see it as being able to be a power source as well, so it can supply power back to the grid, back to the home, if that's the case as well, which is a great thing, especially in these days with the cost of living that we've been going through as well. But again, until we drive it, we can't verify, obviously, sort of like, you know, the mileage that Kia are certainly claiming. But as I've always said, they're one company that have always been very, very good when it comes to delivering the efficiency that they say their cars can do. Now, as I keep saying, until we drive it, I really can't tell you what the car's going to perform like. But here's the stats for you. As I say, you're going to have the option of either a single motor car, which is going to produce just over 200 PS. I would suggest a 0 to 60 time of probably around about 9 seconds for that car, given the size and weight of the vehicle. You'll then get a dual motor car like this one, which will give up to 380 PS, and that'll probably drop the 0 to 60 time down 6-7 seconds, I would suggest. It's probably going to be there or thereabouts. But as I say, until we drive it, I can't give you the full verdict on what the vehicle is going to be like, but we do hope to obviously bring you the full road test review of the new Kia EV9 later this year. Which also means price-wise, well, nothing's really been sort of confirmed, but it's certainly going to start, as I said right back at the beginning, somewhere in the 60,000s, I would suggest, for a single motor baseline car, depending obviously on specification. So there's going to be 2 trim levels. There's going to be baseline and there's going to be this GT line that you see in this particular car here. And there will be slight differences as well. As I say, you'll notice, I'll show you some B-roll footage of the other car as well in terms of the baseline. The roof rail's got a slightly different design. There's a different design of alloy wheels, and there's a different kind of overall feel to the car. It's not quite sporty looking. It's a bit more kind of perfunctory in terms of its sort of styling as well, but still good looking car. But as I say, until we get actual prices announced for it, I would suggest you're probably looking at somewhere from round about, let's say, the 60,000-ish mark, up to probably around about £80,000 for a well-equipped GT line all-wheel drive car. Now, is that too high for a Kia? I'd argue not. And I'd argue in terms of as well as its running costs. Obviously you get the Kia's magnificent warranty, the after sales backup that Kia offer through their dealerships as well. So all of that's got to be taken into consideration. As I say, of course, remember the efficiency that they tend to deliver as well. And of course, if they're talking about sort of like bringing power back to grid as well, you've really got to start taking all of that into consideration. But 60 to 80,000 pounds for a Kia, time is here. I mean, we've seen the Kia EV6 and it's done a lot to change people's perception. You know, a £50,000 in a GT line all-wheel drive car, you know, a £60,000 GT. Why not? Why not? People don't really mind so much in terms of brands these days. They're not so brand loyal as maybe they used to be back in the past. As I say, with sustainability, efficiency and the weight and connectivity being key factors now for people buying cars, I don't see a problem with this car being the price that it is. Which does bring me neatly on to the competition that you might be considering when you're looking at an EV9. And of course, I mentioned some of those brands right at the start of the video. So BMW with the iX, Audi with the Q8 e-tron, Mercedes-Benz with the EQE SUV. None of these actually do offer sort of like a 7-seat capability. So you can also bring in maybe some MPVs into consideration with this, such as Mercedes-Benz with its brilliant EQV. So there is a lot of competition out there from some of the more kind of prestigious brands, but we know cars are getting more expensive and there are other sort of like manufacturers moving into this space as well. Are we going to see sort of like, Volkswagen do sort of like a larger ID6 in China, which we don't get in Europe as well. But if that car was to come, maybe that's a consideration because it's a longer ID5. So maybe cars like that are going to have to be considered as well. And of course, as I say, it's part of Hyundai Group. And we know that Hyundai are going to be bringing out an Ioniq 7 at some stage, which is probably going to be a direct competitor for this car as well. So whilst it's not going to have an easy time of it, I think it's got enough credentials to really challenge, as I say, those established players in the market space. So the new Kia EV9, what do we think? Well, I think Kia's got another winner on its hands. I have to be absolutely honest with you. I think it's one of these cars that when you see it in the flesh, you get it. It's a big, as I say, unapologetic, large, family-orientated SUV. It's got a hugely practical interior, and of course, as I said, it's got that kind of bold kind of Kia design language. So from a design point of view, I think they're often an absolute winner before it's even turned a wheel. But I can imagine that when we do get to drive it, if it's anything as good as we've experienced from Kia's EVs so far, they're going to have another winner on their hands. The message of sustainability, the message of efficiency in the marketplace, and the company's bold plans to really push forward and really increase sales and really increase their presence in Europe does start now. It's hard to believe, as I say, that just over 30 years ago, all they had to offer us was that little Kia Pride car, which was outdated before it even came to market wearing a Kia badge. And look at where they are now. They're giving us products such as the Niro, the EV6, and of course now the EV9. And of course, it's all thanks to being able to be scaled up on that eGMP platform with some very clever battery technology and, as I say, 800 volt architecture. They really are leading the way when it comes to new EVs. And I, for one, cannot wait to drive this car. Thank you once again for watching yet another episode of AutoEV and another sneak peek from the sunny city of Frankfurt. Please remember, if you're not already, can you make sure that you are subscribed to the AutoEV channel, and then once you've done that, make sure you press the little bell button that's down below, because then that way you get notified of when our next video goes live. You can also follow us on all social media platforms as well, so Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, LinkedIn and TikTok, and you'll get notified there when another video is going to go live. If you've enjoyed the video, make sure you do give a thumbs up, and as I say, please always remember, please do leave us your comments down below, because we do read every single one. If we don't reply to them, we do read them at least. Let me know what your thoughts are on the new Kia EV9 and of course on the channel as a whole. And if you're just desperate, if this is the first time you've tuned into AutoEV and you want to know what we're all about, then stick on the YouTube channel, because there's literally 100 odd videos now of road test reviews, sneak peeks, electric icons, van reviews, even motorbike reviews from our guest presenter Charlie Berman. All that remains for me to say is thank you once again for your time. Thank you for watching. Thank you for supporting the channel. And as I say, from Frankfurt, auf Wiedersehen. I'll see you next time.